too fast and hit a girl, and the girl flew and hit us from behind. This is shameful.
Welcome to the Dare to Share Challenge. I'm so excited to have you with us. We've got another incredible guest lined up, waiting in the wings. But if you've just stumbled across this show and you're wondering, what in the world is this all about? The Dare to Share Challenge is part of a Real and a Raw Leaders movement. It's where leaders come, they join me on the virtual stage, and they dare to share their truth, their story, their vulnerability, so that you see the human behind the perception, so that you realize the next time that you're looking up to someone, the next time that you're comparing yourself to someone, the next time that you're saying, I can't do that. Well, now you can, because you realize that behind the scenes, we are all exactly the same. So with that being said, welcome to the stage, Lizabeth Leach.
Hey, hi.
I'm so happy to have you with us, all the way from France.
Yes, I live in Paris. I'm originally from Panama, but I'm now Italian because I'm married to an Italian guy. So yes, so excited to be here.
So excited to have you with us. And I want to ask you, before we dive in, and I'd love to start the interview with this, what made you say yes to coming on this challenge? And I know we were just having a little bit of a chat off record about some thoughts that you've had in the lead up to your interview. So I would just love to, let's dive into that a little bit before we ask the questions of why you're here today.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, when I saw your it was a post where you were looking for guests, I was like, that's so interesting, because speaking the truth about being an entrepreneur and what really happens behind the scenes, that's so exciting, because everybody thinks that if you are working from home because you're an entrepreneur, it's like you're not working. I got that so many times. It's like, oh, but you're working from home, that's not really work. And it's like, if you only knew. So I thought that it would be amazing to share what really happens behind the scenes. But then I had kind of a doubt moment a couple of days ago. I wasn't sure if it was the right time for me to do this interview, because in about a month's time, I'm going to be speaking at a summit in Saudi Arabia. So it's in front of a very conservative audience, and I wasn't really sure. But then I watched the videos, some of the videos of the interviews that you've done, and I was like, oh my God, no, this is it. This is the time. I'm gonna go for it.
I love that so much. And it's in those moments of like the doubt and you do it anyway, they're always going to be the most powerful shares. So I'm super excited to dive in. Are you ready to do it?
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. Okay. So question number one, Lizabeth, is what does being a real and a raw leader mean to you? And we're not just talking about business, right? We know what business means, but the human, the woman, the person, the individual behind the scenes going about an everyday life, that realness and that rawness, what does that really mean and look like to you and how you live your life?
Yes, well, to me, it means standing up for your beliefs, like whatever it is that you really believe in, and not caring about other people's opinions and what they tell you to do or not to do. That to me is a real and raw leader, because that's the way you are going to move forward in every aspect of your life. And let me give you a little example of what I mean by this. I'm a person who believes in the potential that every single human being has to become whomever they want to become and to achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve, as long as they can think about it and believe in it. The power of the mind is it's unlimited, and a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't believe it. A lot of people have doubts about it. So I'm very much a person who meditates, who visualizes things. I manifest things that are in my mind. I imagine these things, and I believe that those things are already true, and I'm grateful for those things. And that's, in my opinion, my belief is that that's the reason why I bring them into my reality. So when you have this kind of mindset, you get a lot of you are crazy. That's nuts. That's so not true. Like you think you're imagining it, but they're happening because they have to happen. And it's like, no, not really. Because everyone can create the life that they want. But until they really get intentional about it, they can continue living on a life that it's not what they expect or hope or wish for or want to have. And if they continue on that path, they will never get it. They will never get to where they want to go.
Oh,
So yeah, you really have to stand up for your what you believe and listen to your intuition.
I love that so much. And how many of you watching can resonate with that? Standing up for what you believe. That can be hard at times, right? And especially if it's someone that we're close to and they're challenging our beliefs or the way that we choose to live our lives. That can be really hard. I would love to ask you before we dive into the next question, do you have any tips for the viewers on how they can stay true to themselves in that process?
Yes, absolutely. And I can do this with another example, as a matter of fact, that has nothing to do with business, so that those who are watching that are still not on an entrepreneurial journey, or maybe they don't want to get on an entrepreneurial journey, but they do want to stand up for what they believe, that can be done as well. And here's my story. When I became an expat, and this was 11 years ago, the first few countries where I lived, I didn't speak the language. I actually the second place where I lived was Denmark, and that's where my son was born. I didn't speak the language. I didn't have any friends. I was away from my family, back home, all these things. So I had to rely heavily on the help that I got from the experts that I had access to in terms of raising my son. And when he started going to daycare, mind you, all this is in Danish, and I didn't speak Danish. My son started babbling things that I didn't get what he was trying to say. And one day when I was talking to a pedagogue there, they were like, "Oh yeah, we do understand what he's trying to say because it's in Danish." And I was like, "Ah, how am I supposed to, help my son, my baby,
Wow.
communicate with me either in English, Spanish, or Italian if he's babbling in Danish, right?" And they said, listen to what they said. They said, well, you need to stop talking to him in all those languages. You need to pick one language because he's going to get confused. His brain is not going to develop properly and he's going to have a hard time in life. And I was like, that doesn't sound quite right. So I did the first thing that I always do. And this is the tip: always research and get the information straight in front of you before you make a decision. So I did a lot of research, and it turns out that what they were saying was not true, because actually, children that grow up in a multilingual environment, their brains do develop differently, but in a positive way, because their cognitive skill, they get enhanced, so they have better memory, they grow up to be better decision makers, they grow up to have skills that people who grow up with just one language, they don't get to develop, because the brain has to adapt to quick changes from one language to the other. So I said, you know what? I'm going to continue talking to him Spanish. My husband is going to continue talking to him in English. You can continue talking to him in Danish, and he's going to hear me speaking in English all the time because that's the language that I use here. Fast forward 8 years, my son is about to turn 9, and he speaks 4 languages. And one of them is not Danish. The fourth language that he speaks is French, because we've been living here for 6 years. He goes to school in French, and now that has become his main language, if we can put it like that. He speaks fluently in Italian, Spanish, and French, and a little less in English, but he can have a conversation in English, and he understands everything. So I can say that I've been successful to raise a kid who's almost a polyglot by
Wow.
the age of 9.
That's amazing.
I stood up to what I believed. I was like, no, I'm not going to listen to them. So if I could do this, everyone can do it. You just have to
Yeah.
stand up for your beliefs.
Yes, so true. Instead of just taking it for written to what
Mhm.
someone who calls themselves an expert is telling you,
Yeah.
Go away, do the research, and make your own decision. Even if you agree with the research or not, you're still entitled to come up with your own conclusion, right? In that, and not feel bad about it. Elizabeth, that is amazing. I'm sat here now thinking, I'm going to ask her, dead share, is that the data share? Do you have more for us if I ask you?
Oh no, I do.
Okay. So with that being said, Elizabeth, what are you willing to dare to share with us all today? And for you guys watching, just so you know, I never know what any of the guests or the speakers are going to share with us. I'm equally as eager and excited as you are to hear what they're going to say. And this is all about them going first, showcasing their vulnerability, their real and raw leadership, and showcasing the human behind the perception. So, Elizabeth, over to you.
Okay. I'm going to share something that is happening right now, that has been happening for a while. So I've decided to become a public speaker, and I began in this year, at the beginning of this year, more or less, without any previous experience. I just threw myself out there and I started attending networking events where I was allowed to speak for little fractions of time to kind of warm up on these things. Now, at the same time, I started suffering from anxiety, like really, really bad anxiety and panic attacks. And that was at the beginning of this year, which I thought were related, or that were a consequence of an accident that I had with my son back in December. We were ice skating and somebody was skating way too fast and hit a girl, and the girl flew and hit us from behind. And then we flew in the air and we landed on our heads, both of us. And it was quite scary. We had to go to the hospital and we were both diagnosed with head trauma. It was a mess for a few weeks, and it took me a long time to heal that, the wounds from that fall. And right after that, as I was starting to get better physically, I collapsed with anxiety. And I thought that it was because when we have, and let me just go back a little bit, because otherwise I think people are not going to understand where this comes from. I am the founder of an online company that I am now going online, but it's been existing for a while, brick and mortar. It's called Evolved Self Coaching, and I help women to learn about their emotions and how to handle their emotions, how to manage them, how to use them to turn their struggles into personal growth. So I work with EFT tapping, I work with Silva mind control, methods of meditating. I work with visualization and meditations and anything you can think of that has to do with controlling your mind and using your emotions to your benefit. So if you think about this, and then all of a sudden the person who's teaching this has a period where she's having anxiety and panic, you might think, well, what is she teaching if she's going through that? And that is what I'm daring to share. In that moment, that started happening. And I thought that it was because of the fall. And it took me about a month and a half. It was like a crisis that lasted that long. And my husband, he had to stop going to work for 3 weeks to take care of my son, to take care of me, to take care of, home, while I was trying to get off this hole where I had, landed on. And all the while I was, going to see my GP. My GP, she sent me to see a psychologist. I got, they tested me to see if I was getting in depression. They were like, no, you have no sign of anything that we can really help you with. And I was like, where is this anxiety coming from then? I had heart palpitations every day, which is horrible. And then little things started happening. I got out of that hole, but I was like, oh my God, this is shameful. Like, how am I going to come up to other women and tell them I can help you deal with your emotions if I am going through this, without really realizing how much I was doing for myself, because I did get prescribed Xanax and stuff like that to get off the anxiety. And I was like, I'm not going to take those pills. No, absolutely not. I'm against medication. So I'm going to go with natural supplements. And I started taking rhodiola, and I started taking ashwagandha, which is really good for the nervous system. And I started taking bash flowers, all these things. And I started getting better with my method. And when I was finally out of it, then I started going to these networking events. And the first time that I was going to get on stage, I had a panic attack sitting I was sitting in a chair waiting for the host to call me, and I was there, and then all of a sudden my heart was like ta, 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 and I was like, what am I gonna do? And she was talking, and then I started doing my tapping, like my silent tapping, and I started calming down. And then she called me up, and I went on that stage, and I did the whole thing in my microphone. I was holding the microphone, and it was so bad. I had to hold my hand because I thought that they would notice, but nobody did. After that, I attended another networking event, and it was the same thing. And it was such a horrible feeling because you're up there trying to get your message out, and you are confident about what you are going to say, but then you get this thing that is coming out of nowhere and you don't know why. And I had no idea why, because it wasn't nervousness. It wasn't that I didn't feel confident about what I was going to share. I mean, I'm very talkative. I'm I believe in my stuff. And I was like, this is not imposter syndrome. What is causing this? I did another research afterwards, and it turns out that it's caused out of perimenopause. I mean, I've known about perimenopause for a while, but I had no idea to what extent perimenopause affects mental health and and everything in your body. And it was like mind blowing when I started learning. I started listening to audiobooks. I started following the right accounts on Instagram to get the information right. And when I did that, and I went to seek help, I haven't, my doctor hasn't put me yet on hormones replacement therapy, which is the next step, because of other things that she told me that I need to wait for a couple of months for reasons that I validate that are true. It's not one of those doctors that they tell you, oh no, what you're feeling is no, it doesn't exist, or no, you have to wait for a year. No, no, no. She was ready to give me the therapy, but she said, you know what, we need to get this sorted out first before I can give you the hormone replacement therapy. And she prescribed natural supplements, which have been life-changing for me. Life-changing. For months, I haven't gotten anxiety. I haven't gotten the heart palpitations. I haven't gotten panic attacks. None of that, which now is a confirmation to myself that I was right. It had nothing to do with me not feeling that I was entitled to be on that stage, and that it had other reasons for it to be happening. So then again, researching is so important. Like, we have to understand, at least this is me. I have to understand what's going on and where things are coming from. I'm very nerdy in that sense. And I like to understand the reason behind the things, why things happen. And this is why I've incorporated in what I am teaching the reason why meditation works. Why is it effective from a brain level, like from a physical perspective, like if you understand how your brain works and why meditation works, why visualization works. People think that it's woo-woo, and there's nothing woo-woo about it, because this is something that athletes do. There's a reason why, because the way your brain activates when you are on meditation, when you are visualizing, it makes everything happen at a physical level.
Mm.
So researching is so important. I did my research. I learned why I was, having this attacks, this panic and anxiety attacks. And they just happened to be like at the worst moment when I was trying to start my speaking, like my public speaking career. But then what happened was beautiful. The last speaking engagement that I attended was in Kosovo at an event where the president of Kosovo was speaking, because she's a huge supporter of women empowerment. So she was there giving a speech in front of all these women. There were about 100 and some women on that, in that room. And then I went to speak, and I didn't speak too long because of reasons that I really didn't understand at the end, but I did speak. And what happened was that I got on that stage and I didn't feel anything. No nervousness, no anxiety, no heart palpitations. I went there like I got on this call. I was like feeling my vibe, and it was beautiful. And then it got me thinking, that's it. I mean, I belong on that stage. I belong on that stage, and I'm going to continue, doing that.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's a story that I haven't really shared anywhere. The fact that I have been going through that, and this anxiety and all these things, because when you are teaching people about how to manage their emotions, and then you tell them, yeah, but I was having anxiety last week, they would be like, hey, you're
Yeah.
not the right person for me to be learning
It
from.
is so powerful, because I was actually speaking to a guest last night we recorded, and they were saying the same thing in a different context, but we forget that we can still help other people and be navigating our own stuff. It doesn't mean that we're any less qualified to help
Yeah.
those that we're here to serve. So I love all of this so much, Lizabeth. Can you please tell everyone how they can get into your incredible world?
Yes. Well, I'm on Instagram, and I'm also on Facebook. On Instagram, I am at Lizabeth_Leach. Or you can find me as the self-coaching maven. I think if you look for self-coaching maven or Lizabeth Leach, you can find the same account, or Evolve Self-Coaching. And it's the same on Facebook minus the underscore. So it's Lizabeth Leach on Facebook and Lizabeth_Leach on Instagram.
Amazing. And all of those links will be in the show notes below. So if you're busy doing things, don't panic. You can come back, click on the links, and go and get in Lizabeth's amazing world. Lizabeth, thank you so much for joining me early in the morning, for daring to share your personal story, your vulnerability, and most importantly, your human and your real and your raw leadership. Thank you so much. And for
Thank
all of you
you.
watching, thank you for joining, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye for now.